Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my tutorial series going over how I made the Ruinland environment. This part is going to be going over the modeling process where I make the final models for the environment, not just the block out. You can see in the background in the time lapse, it's going to be of me making this first pillar here on the right entranceway. And you can see I have the block out up, and I'm basically going to recreate this pillar from scratch using multiple different objects, separating the trim out to different objects as well as the V-shaped accents that go on it. And you can see here, I'm just using the pillar as reference to get a good idea of the size. And right now I'm adding like this front panel to it. And eventually I'll end up combining these two objects. Or actually I end up just deleting it and then deciding it's best to extrude out the face, which is what I end up doing. But generally what I end up doing here is I'm going to make a high poly and a low poly for this object. And you can see I'm comparing it to the reference to try to get a decent idea of what I'm doing. And here I'm going to make the trim, and I use a technique here which I find very useful, where you use the mirror tool to wrap the trim around objects. So you use vertex snap to snap it to the face of the object, and then you move the pivot point to the corners on the inside part of where you want it to be wrapping around, and then you use the mirror tool and you just rotate it using holding down J to snap it to the correct angle. And you can see here I wrap the trim around the whole upper part. After I get it the way I want, it takes me a few tries, but I get it there in the end. You can see me adding a little bit more of the accent, and I'll drag it down. And yeah, that's my general process for how I want to go about making the models for these pillars. And here you can see here I'm testing out beveling it to see what that's going to look like. But this is still the low poly part, so I'm not going to finalize that part yet. And as far as this pillar goes, and generally the modeling for this entire scene, is pretty repetitive, and it all goes about the same way that it goes in this pillar. So I'll let you guys watch the rest of me making this pillar. It's going to be another, I think, 4 minutes or so of time lapse, or sorry, I mean another 8 minutes or so of time lapse. It took me a little while to get this nailed down, but yeah, the rest of the modeling is about the same. So this video is only going to be showing this first pillar here, but you can rest assured that the rest of the scene was modeled the same way, and it took roughly the same amount of time for each part of it. I get into a bit of a groove and it starts going faster along the way, but generally around the same amount of time for each piece. You'll also see towards the end, I'm going to export the model out of Maya, and I end up importing it into my Unreal project, and I apply a little test material that I had already made for a previous project I worked on, just to kind of see what it looked like, but I don't end up going with that in the final project, and you'll see that in the coming portions. But yeah, when you see me go into Unreal, that's the final model is being imported into the project. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the time lapse.